Top of the morning folks, today from the Reddit Rainforest. Have any teachers, professors, or teaching assistants ever been approached by a student who tried, or even succeeded, in trading sex for better grades? Happened once. Working as its staff for the CS/math department at a small university, I was recruited to be a TA for the programming labs. One of the girls in a class I was helping with got flirtatious, and despite my better judgment, I was 24 and she was 18. I got into a relationship with her. This lasted for a couple of months until the end of the semester, when she finally asked if I could help her with her grades. When I told her that I had nothing to do with the grades in the class, she ended things. I should probably be thankful she did not try to ruin my job, but in any case, lesson learned. This happens a lot more than you would think. Here are some of my favorites that I have been a part of. As a tutor for the university, I saw plenty of weird things. We worked in the dorms, but this one still kinda makes my brain melt. There was a female physical therapy graduate student who was a regular towards the end of the semester for assistance with a statistics course she was in. During dead week, the last week before finals, and at that point, the last time our tutoring center was open, she came in and was more desperate than usual and stayed for my entire shift. 4 hours. At closing time, room was still full. She grabbed my hip and asked if there was anything more I could do for her. Being the fairly naive soul that I am, I just thought she was trying to get my attention, and I told her that I could tutor her individually, but that I would have to ask for $15 an hour, what the university paid me for my shifts at the learning center. She then made direct eye contact with me and said, "Oh, but I'm a poor college student. I do not have any money, but I know I can do something extra special for you." After barfing a little in my mouth. Not only was she pretty far from attractive, but this was neither the time nor the place for this crap. I noticed the entire room had gone dead silent. I simply just asked her to leave so I could lock up. TLDR. Female grad student offered 6 to tutor who could not do anything for her grade anyways. As a TA for prep chemical, I have got a ton of interesting tales, but in terms of sexual inappropriateness I think this one is tops. During this semester I was a super TA, in that I graded tests as well as lab work. I was out at a bar in town, having a few beers with friends on a Friday night, and one of my students, and his girlfriend, approached me, which is actually something I'm cool with for the most part. This student had done extremely poorly on his previous exam and there was another one coming up in the next week. He walked up and did the normal, "Hey, let me buy you a beer" general accessory, and sat down to bull malarkey a bit afterwards. After a few minutes of small talk, the kid offers me a night with his girlfriend, who was down for anything in exchange for a good grade. Thinking he was kidding at first, I sort of recoiled and looked over at her, expecting her to smack him with her purse or some other normal response. Instead she winks and blows a kiss. Needless to say, my friends and I all busted out laughing, and I told him to GTFO. I had a student that would show up to every class early and eager to be there. One day I took the class on a field trip and offered to go to another museum with them, and she was the only one that went with me. She hit on me on the train ride there, told me how much she loved me, and moved in on me. Awkward. When I told her that I could not do that for ethical reasons, she told me that she had cancer and had just finished chemo. Double awkward points for pity. I learned later that she told her classmates not to go on the field trip so she could ask me on a date. The next semester she took my next class and gave me a very expensive book that I had often talked about in class. After a while she no longer showed up to classes early, or even at all. I think it's because one of her classmates saw me on a gay dating site. I saw her a couple years later while I was out on a date with my boyfriend at the time. Triple awkward. I went back to grad school after working for a while. So my first semester tying for an entry-level math class. I was well over the age of 30. I had a freshman woman, girl, come to office hours and start talking about how much she needed the class to get into her major and how hard it was, and on and on and on. She wound up by saying how she would do absolutely anything to pass, and on that word she leaned forward and tugged the front of her already rather low-cut shirt down enough to expose a pair of, I must admit, rather fetching breasts that looked quite startled to be suddenly displayed to the world, and I laughed in her face. Deep belly laughs that I'm sure most of the hall heard. It was so absurd, and so I have seen this in a porno, it'll totally work, that I could not help myself. Whining I was getting used to, but she was so young that I totally could not think of her in a sexual way, and to have her just whip them out like that was so completely absurd that it literally doubled me over with laughter. Nothing much happened after that. She rushed out while I was still laughing. and I ended office hours early and went and told the undergraduate advisor and the department chair what had happened. I ended up having to write and sign a letter explaining what had happened as a sire sort of thing, and nothing else came from it. I must have gotten a reputation, since that was the first and last time anyone ever tried that. I had this massive jerk of a duckwit with an amazing body in first year foundation programming who said, and I quoted, "Duck you for a pass." I responded, "I do not need to duck you for a pass. I'm teaching the subject." Not me. I was a campsy tar. I'm actually thankful it never happened to me, but another tar at my school was approached by a girl. He was trying to help her with an essay, giving constructive criticism and such, and she cuts in with a line, "I swallow." Tar stops, stutters a bit and politely tells her that was unacceptable. Throwaway account. I was a tar for entry level biology classes and 23 at the time. I worked 3 large classes ranging from 150 to 200 students. About 3/4s of the way through the semester, I was approached by a sorority girl, we'll call her Alice, in my second period class. She seemed innocent enough, inviting me to some Vegas night they were having at her sorority house. I said sure, and she said she'd see me there. I show up, and the place is packed, and there are setups of everywhere. Poker, blackjack, roulette. They went all out. Alice was at the door when I showed up and gave me a big pile of chips. I found out after the fact that there was a $10 cover I did not pay. I went over and started playing blackjack. Did not really care how I did, just having a good time. After about 10 minutes Alec came and watched me play. She at first was standing behind me, giving me word of encouragement. Within a few minutes, she was sitting next to me and giving me a very strong drink. I kept playing throughout the night and she stayed there, only leaving to refill my glass. As the night wound down and people started to file out, I was quite drunk. Alice said to me, "I was wondering if you could help me with a couple of things for class." Being drunk, I said sure, and she led me up to her room. Once inside, she closed the door behind us. She said, "I'm failing, and I have to pass. I'll make this simple. I'll give you a blowjob for a B and duck you for an A." I said nothing. I think mainly cause I was floored with the offer. She took this as me being not interested and quickly stripped of her shirt. "Please," she said, "anything. But I cannot fail." I have no idea where my bravado came from, but I said, "Honey, you'll have to give me the greatest night of sex of my life for an A." She got an A. I was on the other side of this equation about a year ago. Sort of. I was 20 at the time. He was 35. Ed had a big crush on this creative writing professor of mine. And although he never explicitly said anything suggesting that he wanted to sleep with me, there was a lot of flirting in / after class and via email. About 2 months before the semester ended, I went to a poetry reading hosted by the CW department, and he was there. I offered him a beer and we ended up spending almost the entire time talking. At some point, 3 beers in, it was decided that the whole group was going to go to a bar around the corner. Again, we sat next to each other and more or less kept to ourselves. Before I really knew what was happening, he was kissing me in front of half of the CW department, and then all of a sudden I was in his car and we were going home together. Needless to say, he was horrified in the morning, and the next class was super awkward. About a week later we met at a coffee shop, and he said that he would not mind an encore performance as long as we could be discreet and as long as I knew he was not going to change my grade. I told him I did not need to sleep with him to get an A in his class, and we have been together ever since. We're getting married next summer. I have a manuscript in microbiology, and during grad school I taught a junior level microbiology lab as well as a senior capstone class, microbial physiology. The school I was at had a huge and very well respected DVM program. Many of my students were either pre-vet or pre-med. I was offered drugs, sex, even straight cash for grades. Pre-professional students seem to do this way more than any other group. There is one that stands out, however. We had a graduate lab meeting one day at the local strip club. I had a great mentor professor and all males in lab. As I'm enjoying lunch and a pint, I see a stripper, who looks awfully familiar, on the pole. I get a closer look, and it's one of my macro lab students. Strike up the band, we have a winner. You know that girl in class, the one who barely ever does her macube, wears sweats a lot, but is still strikingly beautiful? This was that girl. Quiet, meek, and her ass cheeks are spread akimbo 2 inches from my face. Then she sees me. The look of horror on her face was worth the price of admission. Then she puts on her dirty stripper whore facade and begins dancing again. We finish our meal, discussions of lab things, and head back to campus. 2 days later, she shows up at my office hours. She flat out asks me if I would want X or just head for an A in lab. It was not will you. It was a given that I would. Just a matter of which form of payment I required. I told her I was not interested. I was a happily married man. And that she did well enough with her brains in class that they did not need to get ducked out for her to get an A. She begins crying, thanks me, and turns to leave. As she's heading out the door, I tell her she has great tits. She giggles, hands me this laminated card, and I get into the strip club free for the rest of graduate school. Me guster. Not a teacher or anything, but when I was a junior in college I was assigned to a project with 2 chicks from my class who happened to be ridiculously hot. The second or third project meeting we had, they informed me that they had talked and did not want to have to worry about the project and that they'd exchange sexual favors if I did all the work. For the next 6 weeks we met at one of their dorm rooms for our meetings, and I got blowjobs, hand jobs, and a couple of threesomes. Pretty much the best semester of my life. 2 stories. First, most relevant to topic. Parley Sitar as a senior in undergrad, unpaid, volunteered, and had a section of about 15 freshmen. One smoking hot girl in it who never came to discussion section and forced me to schedule a meeting to discuss this with her 20% of her grade. She claimed she did not know that and had all these other things going on, typical freshman lies you tell to try and get out of stuff. I told her that at that point, the best she could get for that part of the grade was a B, and she storms out of the room. I, not being affected by giving out a B, just sort of laughed. Well, a few weeks pass, and she does not miss any more sections and everything seems to be on track for her to finish okay, but she stops coming again. I see her at a bar. She had a fake and frequented the same bar the night she skipped, and she is dressed to impress. She sees me, freaks out, comes over to apologize for skipping and starts buying shots, which I take, again, unpaid volunteer tar, with her. At the end of the night, we go to the classroom and have sex, then back to my place for some more. Next morning, she asks if she will get an A in the course, storms out when I say that the best I can do is give her a B+ for the effort. It was a little tense after that. Second, same class, I started sleeping with the professor. Female. Yay. About 2 weeks before the class was over. We have been dating ever since. 1 year next week. I did not get a grade, honestly. I volunteered because she is hot and amazingly intelligent, but the outcome was even better than expected. Taught at a small, private Christian college. Chapel service every day. Curfews. No drinking. Smoking etc. etc. Basically, if normal people are doing it in college, you cannot do it here. Female athlete is failing my class. To answer the question ahead of time, yes, she was hot. Scholarship. Graduation. Another is in jeopardy. She shyly waits after class to discuss her grade. She talks vaguely about extra credit, etc. As she watches people file out the door. When the last student leaves, she looks down to the floor, obviously ashamed at what she's about to say, and says, please, I'll do anything. I cannot get an F. Then she looks up at me, big pouty blue eyes. Hottest thing ever. Yes, I refused. I'm married. I had just been hired, and my predecessor had been fired for exactly this thing. Well, mostly I just acted dumb, like I did not get the inference, but still ... Sweet, Christian, hot, athlete babe offers to debase herself at my whim in exchange for a grade ... I also had a female student stalk me, searching out times and places to talk to me about stuff when it'd be alone in my office or in emptier parts of my building. It was awkward, then sort of hot and flattering, then creepy. Unfortunately, that is all there is for this video, but do not worry, there are many more coming. Like and subscribe for more videos from the Reddit Rainforest. Thanks for watching.